We got another week underway here on Birds 365, your off-season home for Philadelphia Eagle talk and information and opinion. Yeah, we are in the heart of the off-season. But we'll find stuff to talk about for you every 2 hours, Monday through Friday, right here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. We are the Mac and Mac guys. I'm Jody McDonald. He's my partner, John McMullen. How was your weekend, Johnny Mac?
It was good, Jody. We had this murderer's row of birthdays, as I described it. And that's why I got Paul Domowitch to come on the show, because it started with Dama. Dama was June 11th, so I guess that was Friday. I was June 12th, so that's Saturday.
Your birthday was over the weekend? How did I not know that?
Because I don't bring it up. Because when you're as old as me, you don't celebrate these things. But I just thought it was funny because I keep saying it. So June 13th is Sealski, who, by the way, our buddy Mike Sealski is still getting killed on Twitter every day.
For what?
These trolls go after Mike. June 13th is Sealski. June 14th, I don't want to bring up who it is, but it's a very famous person. So I went with Boy George. I don't want to get political. That gives you a hint. June 15th, Nick Sirianni. That is a murderer's row of birthdays right there.
How did you get so in tuned with birthdays?
Well, Facebook,
Facebook?
I'm friends with Tom on Facebook, so I realized it was his birthday. I know my birthday. Then Sealski wrote a column yesterday and said, "It's my birthday. You have to read this column." So I figured out it was his birthday. June 14th, I looked up because I couldn't think of anyone. It was June 14th, and there is a very famous person whose birthday is June 14th. And then June 15th I knew was Nick Sirianni's birthday. So I just had to fill in.
Okay, very good. You had a good day, good weekend celebrating birthdays, and you will continue to do so during this week. By the way, my birthday's January, so you don't have to sweat it.
Don't have to worry about it. Yeah, it would have been perfect. It was June 14th.
I feel 100% bad that I didn't know your birthday was over the weekend. I would have gotten you something, so I owe you something. So
that's
put that in your back
perfectly
pocket.
Fine.
Know that I owe you, but don't expect it today because, yeah, I'm not in a good mood today. Not because it's the Eagle off season and we're reaching for stuff to talk about, and because the Eagles once again stuck it in our ear by coming out with an announcement on a Friday about an hour and a half after we get off the air. They can't do these things on Thursday. They can't give us a chance. No, you got to wait for the entire weekend before we get to talk about Richard Rodgers. We'll get back to that in a second. No, I'm in a bad mood because I have to go have blood drawn today. I'm going to the doctor later this week.
Well, that understands it.
Yeah, I am drinking black coffee. Are you a black coffee guy? I don't even know.
No, I'm not. I need some kind of half and half, but I'm not a sugar guy. I'm more of a one sweetener type of guy, even though it's probably not good for you.
I'm a sweet and low guy, and yes, I do like cream in my coffee, and I've been drinking it black for the better part of an hour now already. And you're allowed to drink black coffee and have your blood taken, but you got to do 12 hours of fasting. So I haven't had my Honey Nut Cheerios. I didn't get an English muffin this morning. Breakfast has gone by the wayside, so I'm hungry and I'm drinking coffee that I don't really like the taste of.
Yeah, when you're not used to the bitterness, it sneaks up on you, man.
It sneaks up on you. It is tough, but I need my influx of caffeine so I can just keep up with you for the next 2 hours. So yes, I'm drinking.
I'm the exact opposite. I don't drink coffee until we get off the air because I drink water, as everyone knows, on the air to keep hydrated because I got to keep up with you. You never know. I don't like to, when I drink coffee, you get kind of, choked up at times. I don't know. Something goes on with your, I'm not. So when I'm on the air, I only drink water unless I'm at a bar and pretty girl wants to buy you a
drink. During the morning, I drink coffee. During the rest of the day, you're right. I drink water when I'm on the air too, but you got to get the caffeine first thing in the morning. I'm sorry. I need it, have for 40, 50 years now. So I shouldn't even say 40 years because I didn't start drinking coffee until I was well into my 20s. Never drank coffee as a kid. until I got to college, and they were
well,
giving
you shouldn't drink it as a kid, I don't think.
I didn't. My parents, good parents, I guess, didn't offer coffee, and I never got coffee. Even when I was at college, when everybody was drinking it to stay on top of being able to stay up 12 straight hours to be able to study and get ready for tests, I was never a coffee guy. Didn't start till after I was out into the
Not probably even later than you. I was probably in my 30s before I went full-blown coffee. Yeah.
No, I was late 20. I can tell you exactly when I started drinking coffee heavy. I was working at ESPN, behind the scenes, production assistant, associate producer. We used to play basketball in the morning once a week. We got a gym that we were paying for to be able to go in scrimmage and get 12, 15 guys to play. And yeah, we were up till 2:00 in the morning the night before working on Sports Center. And then we had to play hoops the next morning. Only time we'd get to the gym was 9:30, 10:00 in the morning, dragging my you-know-what out of bed. Yeah, I needed a little help. So my buddy said, let me get you a coffee. And then I started drinking coffee, and I've been drinking it 40 years ever since. And I must have it before I get on with Johnny Mac. Otherwise, I can't keep up. But it's black today, so I'm not in the best of moods. The Eagles, as I said, screwed us by making their announcement on Friday afternoon. Richard Rodgers is back, something that both Johnny Mac and I agreed would probably happen at some point. I had fear all throughout the offseason that someone else was going to scoop him up. I'm assuming the Richard Rodgers haters will say, yeah, we took him because there was no one else left, because he couldn't get on with another team. He's one of those guys, much like Greg Ward. I will judge production rather than athleticism. I know he's not the fastest tight end. I know he's not going to jump up and make one-handed catches like Odell Beckham. He's not a spring chicken anymore, now into his late 20s after his couple of years with Green Bay and his last couple of years here with the Eagles. But he makes plays. He catches big balls. Yeah. He moves the chains. And yes, if Zach Ertz is going to be elsewhere, although let me note again, Zach Ertz still here. With every passing week that Zach Ertz isn't traded, I will continue to remind Eagle fans, he's not gone till he's gone, okay? Even though we all assume it's going to happen at some point, the fact that Richard Rodgers is here to pick up the slack, I think is a very good thing for the Eagles.
Oh, yeah. He played very well last season, Jody. But I agree with you. At times, this league is very weird. I mean, they do say, well, yeah, Richard played really well last year, but he's not a good athlete. He can't do this. He can't do that. He's slow. He's not a great blocker, but he does he's one of those guys that does everything competently, but doesn't do it eye-poppingly, if I want to create a word. And we know how people in this league are slaves to athleticism and slaves to whatever it is, the stopwatch, the 3-cone drill for defensive linemen, whatever. They're literal slaves to it. And they say, well, this guy, it's not going to happen again. It's not going to happen again because he can't do this. He can't do that. And meanwhile, he's just better than everybody else you got, with the exception of Dallas Goedert. Now, you say the same thing with Greg Ward. You're right. This is a good comparison. Greg's a little bit younger, and he's under the cost-effective deal. So things are a little bit easier for him as far as making the roster. But this is where, if you fast forward a couple of years, this is where Greg Ward is going to be. And he's going to be getting these one-year contracts, and they're saying, well, we got to do this. We got to get somebody better. And then somebody's going to bring him in, maybe Philadelphia, maybe somewhere else. The second part, though, with Richard Rodgers is, if you look at the Eagles receiver position, well, they drafted a kid in the second round. Then they drafted a kid in the first round. Then they drafted Devontae Smith. They keep going with these high-profile picks. They had nobody else at tight end, unless you're talking about Zach Ertz, and we all assume he's not going to be here. So after Dallas Goedert, they got undrafted. We're talking about Jack Stoll last week as the leader in the clubhouse as an undrafted free agent. You have Tyree Jackson, who's a developmental ex-quarterback, Hakeem Butler, who's a developmental ex-wide receiver, and then guys like Jason Kroom, I can't even get his name right half the time, and Caleb Wilson. Nothing, Jody, nothing. So I say this all the time about NFL teams. You go into off-season work and you say, You're really excited about these young players, developmental players. Could be a draft pick, could be a Tyree Jackson. and you get them to camp. And even camps like the Eagles had, where there's no teamwork, you can learn pretty quickly about a guy and say, okay, this guy can't play, so you better get Richard Rodgers on the phone. That's what happened. The Eagles got together. They have no tight ends they're comfortable with other than Dallas Goedert. And they said, we better get Richard Rodgers on the phone before somebody does have an injury in another city and picks up the phone. That's kind of what happens.
Do you think the fact that we waited this long, because I am a Richard Rodgers fan, and he had the season that he had last year, and he made some big plays for the Philadelphia Eagles, and if you are of the mindset that Zach Ertz isn't going to be here, and all of the other tight ends that you have in camp are projects or maybes at best with no NFL history to make a case for them, do you think the reason that it took them this long to do so was the fact that this is a new coaching staff? The coaching staff that Richard Rodgers performed for last year is no longer here. So the Eagle coaching staff had to be schooled, informed, brought up to speed. That, Richard Rodgers did pretty well for us last year. You guys want to go back and crunch the tape on him again? Because we're thinking about reaching out to him, that collaborative tie between the coaching staff and the front office. Do you think that's the reason why we waited this long for Richard Rodgers to get signed?
It could be a part of it, because if you're outside the building, you're going to say the same thing everybody else says. Well, this guy's not good enough from an athletic standpoint, from a spider grab standpoint. We got it in again, Jody. I'm going to do that every week. He's not good enough from that standpoint. And this coaching staff doesn't have a history with him. They don't know the intangibles. They don't know the things he was able to do. Pro Football Focus, I find this hilarious. They kill Pro Football Focus Eagles fans, a lot of Eagles fans, when they say Jalen Hurts is 31st to 32nd. They hate the Eagles. They hate the Eagles. They hate the Eagles. Guess what? Richard Rodgers was the second best tight end in football. The second best tight end in football. Granted, in limited snaps, it was Travis Kelce, then it was Richard Rodgers. That's how effective he was. And granted, limited number of snaps he did have. It was about 250, somewhere in that range. So he didn't play a ton. But when he played, he was good. He was good. And I don't understand NFL teams. To the day I die, I will never understand NFL teams. They all think the same way, which is funny, because they all talk about innovation, but they're all in this little groupthink bubble that says, well, you got to hit this number. You got to hit this number to be a tight end. You don't hit this number, you can't be a tight end in this league, even though they watch this guy from an opponent standpoint and from obviously an Eagles standpoint play effectively. And then I think if you're Howie Roseman, how the rest of the league looks at this guy. He was in Washington last year. People forget. He signed with the Washington football team last year, and he got cut. And the Eagles brought him back because they said, guess what? We need a third tight end. We can't find a third tight end. Now he's going to have to be the second tight end, more likely than not. But that's, if anyone could figure out why NFL teams think the way they think, please contact all of us, because it is head shaking at times.
And while I have my own personal opinions about Pro Football Focus, at certain times, the information you can get from them, the opinion, the rankings, the ratings that you get for them is spot on. And you can find one where, all right, maybe I need to take another look at this guy because their number crunching is saying he's doing better than I realize with my own eyes as I watch on Sundays. I don't take what Pro Football Focus says as Bible. Some people do, which I think is wrong. Some people are just dismissive of it, and they have no idea what they're talking about. How can they possibly come up with that? Well, there's a reason behind what they're saying, and you have to give it at least some consideration. Richard Rodgers is a prime example of why you can't just accept everything they say. Their method of rating and ranking players doesn't factor in the fact that he played as few snaps as he did. He played them effectively, But I personally believe if you played Richard Rodgers that much more, his overall production would probably drop down.
I agree with you. Now, one of the problems that I have with Pro Football Focus, and I say this all the time, is that a lot of the context is lost. But as long as you know what you're looking at, it's very good. In other words, I always say the one thing I say about Pro Football Focus is if they say someone is playing well, they're playing well. If they say someone is playing poorly, they're playing poorly. Now, there could be reasons for that. There could be reasons. There could be context loss in that. And I know coaches have told me this flat out in the past. They don't know somebody's fighting through injury. They don't know that that kid probably shouldn't be playing, but he's playing because he's tough and he's better than our other options, and he's not looking good on the field, but it's still our best option. Like, that's not factored in.
No.
And you're right. Diminishing returns. The more if Richard Rodgers plays as much as Travis Kelce and George Kittle and Dallas Goedert, he's not going to be as effective as those players. But you should have some common sense. You should understand that going in. What we're saying is in those 246 snaps, he played effectively. He played really effectively. And as a backup tight end, that's what you're looking for. As a starting tight end, then you could bring in those other parts to the equation. Yeah, he's not fast enough. He's not going to threaten other teams' defenses. He's not going to pancake guys like George Kittle. But as a backup tight end, the Eagles are smart enough to know that definition. They should be smart enough to know that definition. The rest of the NFL should be smart enough to know that definition. And yeah, while he was on the street this late, while you're bouncing around trying to figure out if I love Tyree Jackson. I love Jack Stoll. Get out of here with that nonsense. You can't even make it to training camp without panicking.
That's why Richard Rodgers is back in Philadelphia, and I think it's a good thing. I won't be predicting that he'll be the second most productive tight end in the National Football League, as Pro Football Focus might, but he's going to help the Eagles because he did last year, and I think he should be able to do so. Looks like he had some chemistry with Jalen Hurts, made plays late in the season, so I think a solid signing for the Eagles this past weekend. And now we wait, and now we wait, and now we wait some more, and it's going to take a while as we get through the summer with no football, which, by the way, the Eagles could have been working this week. They chose not to. They blew off their mandatory minicamp. I'm still not 100% sure why they did that, and that's something that John and I will get to a little later in the show. But before you know it, camp will be here. And before you know it, they'll start playing preseason games. And before you know that, the regular season will arrive, and the Eagles will open up the season on the road against the Atlanta Falcons down in Atlanta. And you and I decided to get a specific guest here for today's show. So you did a little homework over the weekend, a little research on the Atlanta Falcons. Are you feeling the pain? Do you believe that the Eagles have no shot this week one? A lot of who do we have on last week? Bob Groats, who said if they don't beat Atlanta, they could start the season 0-9. Our buddy Bob Groats went. Well, is that Atlanta game winnable week one, John McMullen?
I do think it's winnable. The more I look at this Atlanta team, I see a rebuilding team. I see a transitioning team. Maybe Arthur Blank wants to call it down there. And we're going to talk about the Falcons with D. Orlando Ledbetter. But I will say this, Jody Mack. Look, I don't get the thought process. I think if you bring back Matt Ryan, you should bring back Julio Jones. And we'll talk to D about this. Julio just forced himself out. So it is an interesting transition phase. And obviously Kyle Pitts, who is an area kid, Archbishop Wood. I mean, people are talking about him as being amongst the most talented tight ends of all time. We were just talking about tight ends. Is he even going to play tight end? He's going to be a glorified X receiver as far as I'm concerned. He's replacing Julio Jones. So we'll see how it works out. We'll talk to D about that.
D. Orlando Ledbetter, who covers the Falcons all year long for the Atlanta Journal-Constitutional, will be our first guest. Yes, Eagle fans, we're getting prepped for the season. It's going to start down in Atlanta against the Falcons. So we'll start talking about that game next with D. Orlando Ledbetter, Falcons beat reporter. He joins us here on Birds 365.
I get scared sometimes.
Of a lot of things.
Joining in.
Decisions.
The dark.
The dark.
But I once heard someone say,
but as I always say,
it's okay to be afraid.
As long as you face the fear.
And keep moving forward.
Wherever you are in life, count on the name trusted in insurance for over 80 years. Independence Blue Cross.
Ah, the savoring taste of a good bag of beef jerky is so enjoyable at any time of the day, as long as you can find it. Here's what we suggest. Pure Bull Beef Jerky is our answer, and soon it will be yours. Locally produced in the Philadelphia region, this high-quality, healthy protein snack is easy to secure. Go to steersnacks.com, and you'll see hot garlic, tropical heat, Pure Bull dry rub, and our favorite, Huck and Fod. What's that? Huck and Fod. Go now to steersnacks.com.
Welcome to the Wildwoods, the perfect place where you can safely do everything or nothing at all. Catch a wave, take a nap, go for a drive, grab a bite. It's your vacation, and we're doing everything we can to make it a safe one. The Wildwoods. Your vacation, your way.
The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Union 98, is a proud sponsor of The Labor Show with J. Doc and Krause every Saturday night from 6 till 8 p.m. IBEW Local 98's highly trained and superbly skilled electricians are the best in the business, setting the highest safety standards in the electrical industry. So when you're planning your next industrial, commercial, or residential project, choose an IBEW Local 98 union contractor. Learn more at ibew98.org.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on three. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
This is a key. It's a family tree. It's a pair of wings. It's a secret handshake. And a ticket to anywhere in the world. It's more than a uniform. It's the door to a world most people only dream of. There's Strong, and then there's Army Strong. Try it on at GoArmy.com.
Kick off a football week here on Birds 365. Good Monday to you, everybody. The Mac and Mac guys, McMullen and McDonald hanging with you. We are going to punch our first guest of the day up. Since the season seems so far off, we thought at least talking about it would make us feel like it's just around the corner. We need some Atlanta Falcon perspective. And for that, we bring in D. Orlando Ledbetter. He's been covering the Falcons for years down there for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. Good enough to jump aboard with us this morning. How are you, D?
Hey, I'm doing great, Jody and John. Thanks for having me this morning.
D, love the energy. I was hoping for the bow tie, and people should listen to D's podcast as well. The Bow Tie Chronicles. I love that at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution. And D, we want to talk to you about, I think there's such an interesting interconnection with the Falcons and Eagles. They play each other week one, but they also have rookie head coaches, and Arthur Smith is down there. And the Falcons went about their offseason work in a different way. They had mini camp. They're still doing on-field work. They have OTAs, I think, this week. Correct me if I'm wrong. How important has that been for Arthur Smith to establish his culture as a young coach in the NFL?
Yeah, very important. They have the final week of OTAs this week. Calvin Ridley, we have an open session today. That's why I know bow tie. I got to go outside in the heat today. So yeah, it's been very important for him to install his schemes, his formations, and just get it to the point where when they come back for training camp, they're not thinking about it. They at least have the basics of it memorized. So, they're trying to do the little things, break the huddles, clap hands, get to the line, lined up right, and no offsides and just the little bitty things about football, and then they can build off of that.
How much, D, does the fact that you've got a new coaching staff, top to bottom, new head coach, and the entire staff with them, does that make the difficult chore they're going to have this season, playing without Julio Jones, who has been an all-time great for the organization and a stalwart for the last several years? You're taking him out of the mix. Is it actually a plus for a new coach that if it had been the coaching staff that was there that went to the Super Bowl and they were trying to get along with Julio Jones, does it, because it's a clean sever from the past, make it easier to get into the future without Julio Jones?
I don't think so, Jody. I'm of the school of thought that you want to keep your best players. It's about the players, and whoever's going in there for Julio is not going to be Julio. Even if Kyle Pitts does take over that role, it won't be this year. So I'm out of school of thought that as a new coach coming in, I want to keep all the good players. The players that can't play, y'all can go. The players that can play, stay. It's real simple. So I don't know what happened here, but I wouldn't say they're going to be better because Julio's gone.
Well, let's get into that then, D, because from the outside looking in, I think if you make the decision at number 4 overall, okay, we still have a good quarterback in Matt Ryan. He's 36, but other players have proven you can play well deep into your 30s, even your 40s. So it's a different era. So if you make that decision, wouldn't it make the most sense to bring Julio back, bring the band back? So was it more of the player forcing himself out than anything else? Because, bring him back if you're bringing Matt Ryan back.
Yeah, I think it was more of the player forcing his way out. Didn't believe in what the new regime was coming in with. So, yeah, I do believe that, although we don't have that on the record anywhere other than him going on the radio or on the one show saying, I'm out of there. We don't know what happened leading up to that. Both sides have been guarded in that regard. But, something really messy happened within the organization. It's been going on since Matt Ryan's contract, the 6-year $150, and then Julio goes back in the next year. He wants more money all of a sudden. So it's been a fight within the organization for a while, and it came to a head this offseason with this request for the trade.
I'm going to ask you to do a little revisionist history here, and we acknowledge that it's revisionist. The Falcons were this close to taking down a championship. They kind of folded up, and the biggest come from behind win in Super Bowl history by the Patriots, but they almost did take down a championship. And then they rewarded their star players, Matt Ryan and Julio Jones, with big contracts. And they didn't really sniff the Super Bowl again. It didn't get the job done. Looking back in 2020 hindsight, did that trip to the Super Bowl actually end up hurting this franchise, or do you have to take it as, hey, we were that close. It was a great year. All right, it's kind of screwed us going forward, but hey, it was a great year. How do you look at what transpired after the Falcons just missed in the Super Bowl?
Yeah, in 2020 retrospect, it was a fantastic year. And the follow-up year was pretty strong, too. They lose on the 1-yard line in Philly, and the Eagles going to win that Super Bowl. So they had a good 2-year run, but it fell apart not because they paid the offensive guys. It fell apart because they drafted poorly and signed poorly in free agency. Those guys, they were missing in the second round, third round, first round. Tack McKinley, Duke Riley. Those were guys that were supposed to come in and play on rookie contracts and be pretty good. But the defense fell apart. The offense was still producing, but not at the high rate under Kyle Shanahan. And it kind of went off the rails here for Dan Quinn because of some poor drafting and some poor signings of free agents, including Dante Fowler last year for 3 years, $45 million.
Yeah, D, you mentioned Kyle Shanahan. He's so well respected in this league from an offensive standpoint. So anytime you lose a coordinator like that, you're going to take a hit. I want to fast forward back to Arthur Smith a little bit. I think one of the most important moves he was able to make was talking Dean Pease out of retirement to have sort of that veteran sounding board. One of my criticisms of Nick Sirianni here is there's no veterans. There's no been there, done that on the coaching staff. How important has Dean Pease been for Arthur Smith in the early going?
Oh, no question about it. Dean coming out of retirement was a big key for him. I think Arthur's following what Sean McVay did with the Rams when he brought Wade Phillips with him. You know, a wealth of experience, a longtime coordinator. Wade, of course, had been a head coach interim and head. So, that was, natural for him. But, Dean Pease coming out of retirement. And it's also a veteran staff. It's a lot of, NFL guys with a lot of NFL experience, from the linebackers coach, Coach Bush, to the frontline coach, Gary Emanuel, and then the Ted Monachino has been in the league forever, coaching the outside linebackers and so forth. So these kids got to listen to these older coaches who have a wealth of NFL experience, and we'll see how they can blend a older veteran staff with a young football team and see if they can get them competitive here in 2021.
I'm sure that Matt Ryan has the same attitude you have. If we've got good players, we should not get rid of good players like Julio Jones, and we'll miss him not playing with him again this upcoming season. But he is got to try and get the job done for the Falcons. Did you get a chance to hear from him during the camps this year? What's Matt's attitude going into the season? They did add a big piece in Kyle Pitts, albeit a rookie and untested one, but one that most people believe had a chance to be a star in this league. What was Matt Ryan's attitude in this camp going into the season as the veteran QB?
He was pretty much distraught, Jody. He couldn't wrap his arms around the fact that Julio was going to be leaving. It's like, Julio's been the most significant person in my career here. I mean, he was down in the dump. But since it's all happened now, I'm thinking he's putting it back together and so forth. And he couldn't even, he was like, hey, what would an offense look like without Julio Jones? And he couldn't give us anything. He hadn't even thought about that could happen. And he's having a tough offseason here, letting go of his, top receiver that he's had for the last 10 years. He had a pretty good one when he first started with Roddy White. And he'll have another pretty good one moving forward in Calvin Ridley. But, yeah, he couldn't wrap his arms around it at the time we talked with him about, Julio leaving, even possibly leaving. And, and at that point, he just couldn't even do it.
Well, Dave, let's talk about Calvin, because he's got to be the number one guy now. He did have, I think, some minor foot surgery recently. Do you think he's ready to take that step up? There's a big difference from being the guy and being number two. Julio's getting all that attention, all the double teams. Now Calvin Ridley, opposing defensive coordinators are going to say, that's the guy we got to stop first and foremost. Do you think he's ready to take that next step?
I think so. I've been watching him and kind of sidetracking Marvin Harrison's career with his, because that's who he reminded me of. Coming out of Alabama. And so last year, the numbers were, when Julio was out, 7 games he missed, Calvin averaged 109 yards receiving in those games when he had the attention on him. So that's a good start. Now, if he can do that, and now I don't know when he got those yards, were they in blowouts and them coming back, or were they competitive yards where, the first defense was fighting to stop him really hard. But yeah, I don't know how to do that without going back and watching every game. But the numbers suggest he's ready. He's been on a steady incline over the 3 years here, and went for 1,300 yards last year. So yeah, I think he's ready to take over at number one.
It's going to be very interesting to see how the Falcons run their offense this year. Hayden Hurst is a solid tight end. I would say even above average tight end. And you go out and take Kyle Pitts with the 4th overall pick. That smells like a lot of 12 offense with 2 tight ends on the field this upcoming season for them. Or are they just going to not even try and hide it and just spread Pitts out and call him a wide receiver? How do you think the offense is going to look on the majority of the snaps for the Falcons this upcoming season as far as receivers go?
Yeah, a lot of 12. I think 11 is a thing of the past here because you got so many tight ends. A lot of Mike Davis and, maybe Quadri Allison out of the halfback spot. He's used to run the ball. I mean, he doesn't have Derrick Henry here. But when they do throw, we've seen Kyle line up all over the place in the open mini session. So just as far as a traditional tight end role, I don't see that for him. It's a glorified, more like Jimmy Graham with the Saints type role. He'll be moving around. I could see him in the slot sometimes, outside wide, inline tight. But they're giving him everything, and he's a smart and sharp kid. So now they got to figure out what works. What are they going to be able to execute in the game at a high level with him?
All right, D, you've gotten to see this rookie class a little bit. We all know about Kyle. We all know how talented he is, especially here in the Philadelphia area, coming from Archbishop Wood High School. But the important draft picks as well with Richie Grant in the secondary, and also that offensive line doesn't look like a strength on paper. So guys like Jalen Mayfield, Drew Dahlman, how have they kind of looked early? Does it look too big for them? Are you impressed by this rookie class?
Yes, I am. I think Jalen has a chance to start at either Jalen Mayfield out of Michigan, left guard, or right tackle. Drew Dahlman looks smallish to me. I'm going with Matt Hennessy at center for now, who was the 3rd-round pick from Temple last year. Because they haven't had on any pads, so they all look good out there. But so those 2 guys look good. Richie Grant's moving well in the secondary. He'll be behind Eric Harris and Deron Harmon to start. Maybe get some nickel action early. But I think those 3 guys deeper in the class have a shot to play.
D, on the other side of the ball, when the Falcons are on the field playing defense, I'll give them this much. They have given the draftees they've taken over the last several years the chance to perform. They haven't given up on them and run out and signed okay at best free agents, fill in the gap type guys, not star players. They've given their own young guys a chance to win jobs and perform and the like. It didn't go real well last year because the Falcons gave up one of the most large number of points in the National Football League. Give Falcon fans a reason to believe that this defense will be better this year just because it's a year older.
Yeah, they're gonna. I counted on Saturday doing my depth chart. It's gonna be 6 new starters over there. Right now. So we'll see how it goes in training camp. But they ran off all of the secondary, which made sense. They were 32nd against the pass, so they kept the one corner, rookie corner from last year, AJ Terrell. They'll have a whole new secondary. Isaiah Oliver might win a nickel job moving in from right corner. Fabian Moreau from Washington looks like he's got the right corner, and he got Harmon and Eric Harris at safety with Richie Grant coming. So the back end should be a little bit tighter. That's one thing. You can't give up 292 yards passing a game. You can't do that. And so, but the other part is the front end. The pass rush wasn't any good, and they didn't really do anything to address that. So other than hoping Dante Fowler gets healthy and has a flashback, that's pretty much where your pass rush is at. Other than maybe trying to create some pass rush from the linebackers by blitzing Deion Jones and Foye Oluokun. And you got Grady Jarrett up there getting triple team because they don't have anybody else on the line. So that's my hope. But that's the best I got about the defense. And maybe Dean Pease could out scheme people with blitzes and so forth. But folks will catch on after a little while on tape there.
Hey, Jay, I want to talk to you about AJ Terrell, because he was a first-round pick, as you mentioned, last year. Now, cornerback is an issue here in Philadelphia as well. And you got people here thinking a fourth-round pick in Zach McPherson is going to be a relevant piece of the puzzle. Talk about how hard it is for rookie cornerbacks, even first-rounders like AJ Terrell. How difficult was that transition for him last season?
It was rough, because early on they're gonna get beat on double move routes. They're just not used to seeing that type of route running on a high level. The kid in Detroit went 5th last year.
Third, and he struggled.
No, top 5. Yeah, he struggled mightily. The best corners, because I followed them all last year, were guys in the 2nd and 3rd round. The first round guys didn't do that well. So I mean, there's hope. And you all got, I believe, my man Marquand Manuel up there coaching them up. So
Marquand left. He's with the Jets.
Okay.
But he was there last year. Yeah.
Last year. Okay. So, well, that's out the window. But it's a mixed bag. I mean, with the mid and top flight cornerbacks, some of them can come in and do it. And
I think we lost Steve for a second. That happens. That happens on a streaming show. Well, hopefully we'll get T back. If not, a lot of good intel. Obviously, it's early in the process, Jody, but it is interesting. And you see D talking about that defense, especially. Boy, it does not look good on paper. I will say that. And other than Grady Jarrett, who's a really good player, as D mentioned, he gets triple teamed because they don't have anything else. Deion Jones should be back at linebacker, so that will help. And that secondary, man, there's not a lot of proven there, but they do have AJ Terrell, who should be back better in his second year. Things may have slowed down. And they did draft Richie Grant, as I mentioned, in the 2nd round. He'll help in the secondary at safety. I think he'll be starting pretty quickly, because I don't think they got the guys to hold them off. So Eagles should have a chance.
Did you like AJ Terrell in last year's draft?
Yeah, I liked him.
So
I liked all the corners. I liked Okudah. If you would have told me that he would have played as Porter, I said, you're crazy. And he was just, we brought up Pro Football Focus earlier. He was the worst cornerback in football as the 3rd overall pick. Now, he played a lot. So, again, we talk about playing versus not playing. Damon Arnett, the other Ohio State quarterback, was terrible with the Raiders.
Now that was a reach. The Raiders reached to take him where they took him. So.
But I will say it wasn't like it was – he was supposed to be a first-round pick, probably late 1st round or early 2nd round at the worst. So you can say it was a reach. I don't disagree with that a little bit. But bottom line is he struggled. AJ struggled as a first-round pick. That's why I said, look at those first-round corners from last year, man. That position is a bear to play as a young player in the NFL. You know, and much of it, Jody, is because the philosophy is so different. You come to the NFL, these guys are used to being able to get their hands on receivers, and they'll let them play a little bit at the college level. You can't do that in the NFL. It's ticky-tack. And they don't know what to do. And all of a sudden they start getting beat. Because these guys can not only they can run routes, and you can't put your hands on them, the receivers, and they're just beating you like a drum. And then all of a sudden the confidence goes, and it's a snowball.
If John is right in the way he's evaluating it, I'm not saying that he isn't right. Eagle fans, you should feel that much better about Devonta Smith. Because if they officiate the game different in college football than they do in the NFL, that cornerbacks get a little bit more leeway, that they don't go to the flag when there is contact quite as quickly in the collegiate game as they do compared to the NFL. Devonta Smith had the year he did in college football last year. In the NFL, good luck to the cornerbacks. They're going to have to cover this kid as a rookie wide receiver. That's why I love Devonta Smith and think he's going to have a huge first year in the league. But you're right about the cornerback and the transitional period from going from the best defensive player on the field to a guy in his rookie year in the National Football League who's absolutely going to get picked on. I just think this is a trend that you can point to and go back and research and show that it plays itself out. The first thing offensive coordinators do when they get a game plan for a given week against you, who's the young guy on the other side? Yeah. Who's the D-back that's a little wet behind the ears in the NFL? We can scheme something around him and take advantage of him. They don't care that he was the number 3 pick like the kid in Detroit last year. It doesn't matter. Inexperience, we'll attack it. We'll exploit it. And that's what's happened in the National Football League these last couple of years.
So, Jody, I just looked at it. So you have the corners in the first round last year. Jeff Okudah, number 3 overall, was just a disaster. C.J. Henderson at number 9 to Jacksonville wasn't great. A.J. Terrell, we just talked about with D, was number 16 overall. Damon Arnett was number 19, as you called a reach. He was terrible. You had that kid, I can't pronounce his name, from Auburn, Noah Igbenahani from Miami. He didn't do anything. You had Jeff Gladney at 31, who was up and down. He was probably the best of the bunch, but he's already gotten in trouble. He's going to get suspended for off the field. And, oh, by the way, he wasn't good. He was just the best of the bunch. That is a difficult position to hit the ground running. Now, all of those guys, with the exception of Gladney, who may never play again because he had a really ugly domestic violence arrest, all those guys might turn into good players. My point is there is a big transition phase, and that's why I can't sit here and say, oh, Zach McPherson can play outside cornerback in the NFL as a 4th-round pick. To me, it's an absurd thought to even have.
Last year's results are last year's results, and they're stark and they're ugly. So sorry to all those teams who did use those high picks on quarterbacks last year. Maybe year 2 will be better with a year of experience under their belt. That's what you got to hope for if you're a fan of that team. And again, I always need to bring it back to an Eagle perspective. Didn't the Eagles really want to take a cornerback that high in the first round this year?
Remember, that was one of my concerns, Jody. I brought this up. I said, as good as you think Patrick Surtain is, as good as you think J.C. Horn is, they are going to get beat like a drum early in their career. And to me, it comes down to, do you have enough mental toughness to overcome that and then bounce back when you start to get – it's almost like an NBA type mentality, the NFL, when it comes to defensive backs. As you get some experience, they give you a little bit more leeway. I'm not going to say it's the Jordan rules, but you're able to do a few more things than you are as a rookie, and that helps a little bit. So part of it is that, but it's just, I think it's the most difficult position to transition to, besides quarterback, in the NFL, and that's cornerback. And we got D-back.
Let's put this question to D. Orlando. We got back on the stream. While you were down, D, John and I were talking about how difficult it is for young cornerbacks to come into the league and be thrown right into the deep end of the pool. A.J. Terrell was a first-round draft pick last year, and part of that secondary that struggled as mightily for the Falcons as it did. Is the young man ready to be better year number 2, specifically from a mental standpoint? You can judge him on the field when he gets on the field, but some of these guys have bad first years. They're shell-shocked. They're never as good as they're projected to be. How did A.J. Terrell handle his season after the fact of getting eaten up a little bit as a rookie?
Yeah, he came on. He continued to improve, and by the end, he wasn't, getting beat on the double moves. He was there in coverage. It wasn't like he was out of the picture frame later on in the season. So he came on and ended up having a respectable rookie season for, a top 15 pick. So they believe moving forward that he'll be a solid part of their operation. But yeah, I've seen a couple of Desmond Trufant, Robert Alford, just the rookie cornerbacks are going to have a tough, those are first and second round picks. They're just going to have a tough time with being set up with the moves and the route concepts that they haven't seen before. And you hope that, they can play through that bumpy play and smooth it out. And we think AJ did that. And I saw Trufant and Robert Alford. Well, Robert Alford never spoofed it out. He kept grabbing the whole time. So, but they played with him. He made it. He was on he made some plays for him, but he had a tough time.
Okay, you've been around the Atlanta Falcons for a long time, and you've seen a lot of practices, a lot of off-season, a lot of training camps, a lot of games. When you look at this team, you said you were checking out, assembling your depth chart. You look at this team, you say, I don't know this position is good enough. What position would you go to?
Right tackle and left guard. Well, you said one, but I got a the offensive line. Matt Ryan has been sacked 131 times the last 3 years. And I looked up the hurries and pressures numbers. I got to get those memorized too. That's just awful. It's like 20% of his dropbacks, almost 30. He's either getting sacked, hit, or hurried. And so offensive line as a group in one position is right tackle.
All right, let me ask you about the division that the Falcons are in. Bad news is, yeah, the Tampa Bay Bucks are in your division, and they are the defending champions, and they had a lot of free agents this offseason, and they got most of them to sign back with the team and keep the band together and take another shot. So that's a hell of a hurdle to try and get over. But the flip side is, all right, Carolina's going with a new QB. We'll see if Sam Darnold is better out of New York and their bad coaching staff, but still young coach who last year couldn't figure out how to win close games. They were in almost every game, but they couldn't figure out how to win those games. And you got the Saints that are going to go out there with a new quarterback duo, not named Breeze, and we'll have to see how that plays out. Are the Falcons definitely the fourth team in this division? We know they're not first. That would be the defending champion Bucks. But where do they fall in the hierarchy of the division as far as expectations go this year?
Yeah, they're fourth. They're coming from the back of the pack just because they're going to have at least 5 or 6 new starters on defense. Offensively, no real identity now. You don't have a running attack, but you don't have your best receiver. So you're going to be trying to put something together there on the offensive side of the ball where you got Matt Ryan throwing off of Mike Davis. And, and you got Calvin Ridley there. That's going to be your main guy. And then you got Kyle Pitts, a rookie. So that's kind of unknown heading into the season. So that's got to keep you in that last place hole. As Carolina, they look sharp under Coach Rule last year and should be better in year 2.
Hey, G, I just noticed your shirt, and I just realized we have Damo coming on in the second hour. So I just realized we have 2 Hall of Fame voters in the 2 hours of the show today. And so I want to go that route with you and say, give me an Atlanta Falcon that should be in the Hall of Fame that's not in the Hall of Fame yet.
Tommy Novus. Tommy Novus is the big one that, Ray Nitsky and Dick Butkus were of his era, and they're in. And Tommy Novus's numbers were just as good. Now, Butkus played in Chicago. They weren't very good either. So the argument that the Falcons weren't a good team is not a rule to keep him out. We've seen some players that were not with good teams. Elvin Bethea is in the Hall of Fame. Aeneas Williams, he played on some good teams though in the Rams. But if the player's good enough, he should have been in. And Lynn Pasquarelli passed on to me. He gave me a sit-down talk about what happened over the years and so forth. And a lot of it had to do with Claude Humphrey versus Tommy Novus, who should have gone in first, and they fought about it, the older guys, and I think they wanted Claude over Tommy, and the local Atlanta person at the time, Mr. Bishop, wanted Tommy, and so it was some knockdown dragouts over it, but the senior committee could fix that. I thought they were going to do it in that centennial class that we're going to be putting in this year. But it didn't happen then, and it's a lot of people in that senior committee's room. That's a tough room to get through. But yeah, Tommy Novus, Mr. Falcon, is not in the Hall of Fame, and that's one big major oversight from the committee.
Thank you, John. You set me up nicely for my last question because I read a story over the weekend about the Falcons and numbers. Is Tommy Novus's number not being worn right now by Atlanta Falcon player? Because the Falcons don't retire numbers. There are some numbers that aren't given out, but there aren't any retired numbers. Is Novus one of those numbers that isn't officially retired, but practically yet? Nobody's ever going to wear that number.
Nobody has worn it. That's one that they have unofficially retired. It's on a protected list, is what I call it. Barkowski was a 10, but Scott Campbell wore his for years. And you got a couple others that have not been issued a lot. Mike Ken, William Andrews, but somebody's worn those again. Somebody might be in practice with them, but Tommy Novus, nobody even gets that. And now it's on the protected list.
Understood. D, we appreciate you not only coming on, but coming back on after we had a little bit of a technical difficulty. Thanks for jumping back in. Enjoy your couple of weeks where you get to take a deep breath before the season gets underway. We will get you back on the week before the Eagles and the Falcons play this year. Thanks for today.
All right. Thank you, Jody and John, for having me. Take care and have a great day.
Thanks,
Our
Steve.
pleasure. That is D. Orlando Ledbetter from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, giving us some good Falcon knowledge. We'll do this from time to time. We do it with the divisional rivals a lot, Giants, Washington football team, and Cowboys. But we do know who the Eagles will be playing this year, and we'll, quote-unquote, jump behind enemy lines to get a little look ahead of time of teams that the Eagles will be facing off during the year. But as always, the main focus here on Birds 365 are the birds themselves. John and I will come back a little later, about 20 some odd minutes from now. We'll go bird specific with our buddy Paul Domowitch from the Daily News and Inquirer. We come back. I got a couple more birds questions that I want to fire at my partner, John McMullen, right here next on Birds 365.
I get scared sometimes.
Of a lot of things.
Joining in.
Decisions.
The dark.
The dark.
But I once heard someone say,
But as I always say,
it's okay to be afraid.
as long as you face the fear.
And keep moving forward.
Wherever you are in life, count on the name trusted in insurance for over 80 years. Independence Blue Cross.
The savoring taste of a good bag of beef jerky is so enjoyable at any time of the day, as long as you can find it. Here's what we suggest. Pure Bull beef jerky is our answer, and soon it will be yours. Locally produced in the Philadelphia region, this high-quality, healthy protein snack is easy to secure. Go to steersnacks.com, and you'll see hot garlic, tropical heat, Pure Bull dry rub, and our favorite, Huck and Fod. What's that? Huck and Fod. Go now to steersnacks.com.
Welcome to the Wildwoods, the perfect place where you can safely do everything or nothing at all. Catch a wave, take a nap, go for a drive, grab a bite. It's your vacation, and we're doing everything we can to make it a safe one. The Wildwoods. Your vacation, your way.
The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Union 98, is a proud sponsor of The Labor Show with J. and Krause every Saturday night from 6 till 8 p.m. IBEW Local 98's highly trained and superbly skilled electricians are the best in the business, setting the highest safety standards in the electrical industry. So when you're planning your next industrial, commercial, or residential project, choose an IBEW Local 98 union contractor. Learn more at ibew98.org.
Field of life. First Trust Bank there for you.
Champions on three. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
This is a key. It's a family tree. It's a pair of wings. It's a secret handshake. ticket to anywhere in the world. It's more than a uniform. It's the door to a world most people only dream of. There's Strong, and then there's Army Strong. Try it on at GoArmy.com.
You've got your MAGA guys here on Birds 365, Jody McDonald and John McMullen. Plenty yet to cover today, including talking to our bud, Paul Domowitch. Good catch by you. I had forgotten that D'Orlando was the Hall of Fame voter for the Falcons. I missed that shirt. You got better eyes than me, too, if you could notice the shirt that he was wearing had the Hall of Fame voter logo on it. But we'll get Domo up here. Maybe we'll talk Hall of Fame with him, too. But there are some Eagle things we want to get in with Domo. And I got some Eagle things for you, J-Mac. Did you see the quote from Le'Veon Bell over the weekend?
Yeah, come on, Le'Veon.
That he would not play for Andy Reid again if it's life depended on it.
I'm sure Andy's broken up.
He gets picked up off the scrap heap, has a very productive career with the Pittsburgh Steelers, becomes a free agent, Jets blatantly overpay him to go in there, and it never works for him in New Jersey, and gets released in the middle of that mega contract, and the Jets just eat the money because he is doing absolutely nothing for him. And Andy picks him up off the scrap heap and gives him a chance with the Chiefs, and they make a Super Bowl run. All right, you didn't get a Super Bowl ring, Le'Veon, but you were playing well into February, which other players weren't given the chance. And he said something that seems to have hurt Le'Veon's feelings. And Le'Veon tried to walk it back over social media over the weekend that I'm sorry that I decided to air my views and my feelings on social media. Yeah, but you did. Sorry. And everybody noticed it before you tried to walk it back. Believe me, as a Jet fan, I know he's a stone cold diva. And sometimes divas are a necessity because they're talented players and they help you win. But they also have their downsides as well. I would say as of right now, this Philadelphia Eagle roster is pretty much diva-free. Would you agree, J-Mac?
Yes, I would agree, and that's not necessarily a good thing, by the way, Jody. That means you're devoid of divas tend to be really, really talented. Now, at the end of their careers, like Le'Veon Bell, I mean, in the prime in Pittsburgh, Le'Veon was arguably the best running back in football, certainly the most well-rounded running back in football. They tend to be really talented. OBJ, people like Randy Moss back in the day was described, so many receivers. They tend to be really talented. Maybe Devontae Smith develops into a diva, and maybe that's a good thing.
Not happening. Not happening. He's never going to be a diva. He's got his mind in the right place.
I just mean from a talent perspective. But as far as Le'Veon Bell as a whole, I'll give you a story a wise man once told me. You were talking about coffee to begin the show, Jody. If you're going to the Wawa to get a coffee, your morning coffee, and you meet an a-hole and you go through the rest of your day, you probably met an a-hole. But if you go to the Wawa and you meet an a-hole, and then you continue to meet a-holes the rest of the day, no matter where you go, you're probably the a-hole. So, Le'Veon Bell, Pittsburgh, Jets, Kansas City, look in the mirror, buddy. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I have the same read on Le'Veon Bell that you have. All right, so there's a reason that, and it tied nicely together that Le'Veon Bell did this with Andy Reid, one of our guys, and said something stupid and once again proved his diva-like status. Good luck, because you're right. If you're a diva and everyone looks at you as a diva and you don't have that talent that you used to, Le'Veon Bell, guess what? Gonna get that much harder to find a job going forward. You might not want to play for Andy Reid. I don't know who's going to want to have you play for them next year. You may like the coach better, but you might not have all that many reaching out.
How bad is it when you're a big name, Jody, and Philadelphia Eagles fans don't ask about you? You know it's bad because they want every big name. Any name they heard of, they want. And they don't want Le'Veon.
Nobody wants Le'Veon Bell. He might be hard-pressed to find a job this upcoming year. But let me ask you about another guy who certainly earned diva status. And I'll ask you to evaluate him both as a football talent and as a diva as well. Who's a free agent? Who's still sitting out there? Who plays a position of need for the Philadelphia Eagles? Because I know that I have absolutely on air referred to him as a diva. That would be cornerback Richard Sherman, who as part of the Legion of Boom in Seattle was a key contributor on a Super Bowl winning team. He kind of wore out his welcome in Seattle and went free agent, stayed in division, landed with the 49ers. To me, yeah, he wasn't the shutdown. And I use that phrase because it became a standard in the National Football League. I don't really even know if there is one shutdown corner left in the NFL. I just don't think that happens anymore. So let's just say Richard Sherman is a talented cornerback, not as talented as he was in Seattle, but still played pretty good football for the San Francisco 49ers these past couple of years, but is still sitting out there. No one has made the move for Richard Sherman yet, including the 49ers. And I did read over the weekend that it looks like the 49ers haven't even pursued him a little bit this offseason. He is certainly an upgrade talent-wise from what the Eagles have on their roster right now. I don't know what his asking number is going to be if the Eagles have the flexibility to get their hands on him. But I'm asking you from both a talent, a putting up with diva, and a financial standpoint. How much should I be dreaming the dream that Richard Sherman can be a Philadelphia Eagle?
Yeah, I mean, boy. I mean, he's 33 as well. You haven't put that into the mix. So we talk about this, where the Eagles transition. Do they believe they're a little bit better? I think he's in the Ryan Kerrigan category. If you can get him at a bare bones price, nothing on the salary cap, why not? He's certainly better than what you have. We just had D on. We're going to have Damo on. We talked about the Hall of Fame. This is a borderline Hall of Fame player. I don't necessarily think he should be in because he is more of a zone corner, more of a than a press guy. You talk about lockdown. Typically, when you think about Hall of Famers, you think about lockdown corners. But as you mentioned, Jody, they might not exist anymore. So you might have to start thinking about it a different way. And then I go back to the philosophy of the defense. In theory, they're going to play a lot of cover 2, cover 3. What cover 3 corner is better than Richard Sherman? There isn't one. He is the cover 3 corner. That is the guy. That is the Legion of Boom. Big, long, lengthy, 6'3". I mean, he would be, in theory, a perfect fit from a schematic standpoint for this team. Interestingly enough, Darius Slay wouldn't be. So all of that I like, but do you want a 33-year-old guy? Do you want to get the startup cost over with Zach McPherson? We just talked about young corners. You know, it's kind of, where are you? And the Eagles go down this rabbit hole. I remember we were talking to Tim McManus last week. They do it every year. After the season ends, they say, we got to get younger. We got to get more cost effective. We got to turn this roster over. Then the offseason goes along and they say, we're a little bit better than we think we are. They listen to people like John McMullen saying, you know what? Atlanta's not very good. You can beat Atlanta. And all of a sudden, 8-9 turns into 9-8 in a bad division. Can we sneak in the back door with Richard Sherman? I think the Eagles could talk themselves into it. I will say that.
And the key question, you pointed it out, and I knew it, but I just set you up for it. It's going to be coin. How much is Richard Sherman willing to pay for? The Eagles would like him for 40 cents on the dollar. He's probably looking for 90 cents on the dollar. When the league hasn't signed you and you're into June, you got to realize you're not getting $1 for $1. You're not getting what you thought you were worth when you went to free agency. So you're going to play for a reduced price. How reduced is that going to be? The Eagles probably want it very reduced. I still think someone will step up and pay him more than the Eagles would probably like to pay him at this point. The other question comes in with Richard Sherman is, what is he looking to do with this season? Is he looking to go out and have an unbelievably good Boppo season and make someone believe that next year he would be a guy who can get $1 on a free agent market? Or is he a guy who wants to join a team and maybe make a Super Bowl run? He's got his ring, but if he could get a secondary one with another team, that John McMullen guy on Birds 365 talked about his Hall of Fame potential. That would certainly give a Hall of Fame presenter a little bit of an angle to play with. His second Super Bowl ring somewhere. Yeah, the Eagles can't really sell that, can they?
No, they can't.
Super Bowl contender this year.
No, they could sell. What I just said, we might be a contender in a bad division, but I don't think it's a Super Bowl contender. So, yeah, it depends on his prospects as a free agent and what teams that are perceived to be Super Bowl contenders, do they even have any interest? But, I'm thinking about it. You brought up diva, Jody. I don't even know if Richard Sherman's a diva. He's
Oh, yeah. He's a stone cold diva.
But he's a trash talker. He's got a big personality. But so does Brandon Graham. I don't consider Brandon Graham a diva. I mean, he talks more trash than anybody. So on the field, he's a trash talker. But I don't think he's a huge pain in the you-know-what off the field. But maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I do. I think he's a pain in the you-know-what off the field, and he would go right to the top of the diva list with the Eagles if he were to sign here. All right, the other CB2 I wanted to bring up today. We talked so much about QB3 last week, and really, is that going to determine the fates and fortunes of the Eagles' upcoming season? Methinks not. But CB2 can. You got Darius Slay as your number one corner. What if you made Darius Slay your number two cornerback? Mm-hmm. I'm talking about.
I see what you're doing. Bill Belichick does it all the time.
Yeah, I'm talking about Bill Belichick and a cornerback that he has, as a matter of fact, and that's Stephon Gilmore, who was, I believe, the Defensive Player of the Year in the National Football League in 2019. Am I correct in that? Am I remembering that correctly?
You are correct. Yes.
So you're talking about one of the supreme talents in the National Football League, who, at least if you believe the rumor mill, has been thrown out there as a possible trade candidate for the Patriots to move on from. Big time salary cap number. There's a lot to it. Would he be willing to redo his contract? Everyone is always willing to redo their contract if you're talking about one that's very advantageous for them. So the Eagles would have to know about that before they ever got into contract trade discussion talks with a team like New England for a guy like Stephon Gilmore. Would he even be worthy looking into? Because they've got a massive cap hit going forward with Darius Slay. Can they get involved with talking about a guy like Stephon Gilmore, who down the road, if you redo his contract for this upcoming year, because Eagles don't have a lot of cap room, that means it's going to be that much worse of a cap situation down the road. Slay and Gilmore as the opposite quarterbacks, guilty as charged, like you said we discussed with Tim McManus. I'm now buying into, the Eagles could compete this upcoming year. If you're going to get Stephon Gilmore, you absolutely are suggesting, we can sneak in and win this division. Am I stupid for even going there and bringing up his name, that the Eagles could have the best corner combos in the National Football League if they could get a deal done for a guy like Stephon Gilmore?
Yeah, I mean, only because of the cap hit. It's enormous. I'm trying to figure out exactly what it is. It's well over.
Well, whatever it is, they're going to have to change it.
Well, they
can't bring him in. They have to redo his deal, which means he's going to have to get guaranteed money, and you're going to have to push it down the road in future cap years. It doesn't matter what his contract says now. For the Eagles to even think about acquiring him, they're going to have to redo his deal anyway.
Yeah, I mean, look, the salary cap is overrated in the fact that if you want to really get something done, you could probably get it done. But in this particular instance, where the Eagles are $4.953 million under the cap, And that doesn't include Landon Dickerson's contract. So that'll be another chunk off of that. To pick up a guy with a $20 million cap hit, $20 million plus, you got to do a lot of gymnastics. Remember, he's also under contract 2020. That was 2020. Actually, it's not that bad. I'm looking about it, Jody. I'm looking at it. I just pulled up his contract.
It's only like $7 million.
Yeah, 20 million. $7 million is a lot better. The cap hit is 16.2.
Right.
The dead money for New England would be in the 7 million range. So is it doable? Yeah, they could get it done, especially if you extend him and how he does his voidable years trick.
That's what they're going to have to do.
But, this is a guy who still plays at a high level. So you can't play those tricks you can play with, say, Ryan Kerrigan. You're going to have meat in the contract. You're going to have significant money in the first 2 years of the contract that gets backloaded. I just don't think they're in a position to do that until really we're 2021, 2022. The cap is going to spring back, but the new TV money doesn't kick into 2023, really. That's when they have a lot of space to do a lot of different things. There's too many issues with this team from a cap perspective. They've already swallowed their medicine. I don't think they're going to swallow more medicine by working out something with Stephon Gilmore. And, oh, by the way, I don't think he'd want to play here, so that would play into it as well. So there's a lot of different – I'd love to have the player. Can I have the player without the headaches? I'd love that, but too many headaches.
No, you have to take the whole package. So basically, Richard Sherman available out there, still a talented football player. Might not be what he once was, but a guy who could be a perfect fit depending on the Eagles scheme that they're going to use. You're telling me no shot, no chance.
No,
not
just
happening.
You know what? Just get Steven Nelson, Eagles, please. Just get it done. I mean, that's the realm. That's the neighborhood we're in. I go to Haddonfield, Jody, and I see some of the nice houses, and I say, boy, I want that house. It's not my neighborhood. I'm in Stratford. I'm in my neighborhood. Eagles are in the Steven Nelson neighborhood. Don't worry about the Stephon Gilmore neighborhood.
No Stephon Gilmore, no Richard. You're telling me that Nelson can still happen? Because I'm starting to believe, let's go Zach or Zach, depending on how you pronounce the Eagles' fourth round.
Well, it is Zach, but it's spelled Zach. But,
right, it's spelled Zach, but pronounced Zach. Get ready for some Zach, because you're telling me they don't have a chance of playing at the top of the market, but you still have faith that the Steven Nelson market.
Hey, he's out there. You got to have faith. Until he's not, you got to have faith.
All right. We'll see if our next guest has any updated info on the Eagles' pursuit of an upgrade at cornerback over Zach. Sorry, Zach, we like you. We've never even seen you play, Zach, and it seems like we're bad-mouthing you and trying to replace you on a day-in, day-out basis. But that's what we do here on Birds 365. And we'll get Paul Domowitch to jump on board and help us do it. He's next here on Birds 365.
I get scared sometimes.
Of a lot of things.
Joining in.
Decisions.
The dark.
The dark.
But I once heard someone say,
but as I always say,
it's okay to be afraid.
As long as you face the fear.
And keep moving forward.
Wherever you are in life, count on the name trusted in insurance for over 80 years. Independence Blue Cross.
The savoring taste of a good bag of beef jerky is so enjoyable at any time of the day, as long as you can find it. Here's what we suggest. Pure Bull Beef Jerky is our answer, and soon it will be yours. Locally produced in the Philadelphia region, this high-quality, healthy protein snack is easy to secure. Go to steersnacks.com, and you'll see hot garlic, tropical heat, Pure Bull dry rub, and our favorite, Huck and Fod. What's that? Huck and Fod. Go now to steersnacks.com.
Welcome to the Wildwoods, the perfect place where you can safely do everything or nothing at all. Catch a wave, take a nap, go for a drive, grab a bite. It's your vacation, and we're doing everything we can to make it a safe one. The Wildwoods. your vacation, your way.
The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Union 98, is a proud sponsor of The Labor Show with J. Doc and Krause every Saturday night from 6 till 8 p.m. IBEW Local 98's highly trained and superbly skilled electricians are the best in the business, setting the highest safety standards in the electrical industry. So when you're planning your next industrial, commercial, or residential project, choose an IBEW Local 98 union contractor. Learn more at ibew98.org.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on three. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
This is a key. It's a family tree. It's a pair of wings. It's a secret handshake. And a ticket to anywhere in the world. It's more than a uniform. It's the door to a world most people only dream of. There's Strong, and then there's Army Strong. Try it on at GoArmy.com.
All right, we may be on summer vacation from Philadelphia Eagle activity. Doesn't mean we can't talk about them. That's what we do here on Birds 365. Johnny Mac, Jody Mac, hanging with you. We've got another voice to add to the mix. He's an educated one because he's only been covering the Eagles for decades. The Hall of Fame voter here in Philadelphia, our buddy Paul Domowitch of the Daily News joins us. How's your summer going, Domo?
I'm not saying a word until you guys promise that I get a free bag of pure bull beef jerky.
There we go.
Huck and Fud. Everybody loves the Huck and Fud.
Everybody loves it, Tama. And happy belated birthday. The Murderers Row of birthdays. June 11th through June 15th. Nick Sirianni, obviously, turning 40. That's a big one. He'll have this wisdom and gravitas once he turns 40, Dama.
I've got T-shirts as old as him.
Oh. All right, Damo. A couple of things that we've been discussing here today. A couple of things I haven't gotten into yet that I want to get into you. One of which was the tight end position. Actually, we did talk about it with Richard Rodgers getting signed at the end of last week. Zach Ertz is still here. And everyone's got their belief about Zach Ertz, and we all know the conversations that have been had between he and the organization and the tearful farewell at the end of last season for Zach Ertz as he was leaving the field. Yet here we sit, and Zach Ertz is still here. Even though they signed Richard Rodgers last week, Zach Ertz is still here. And the tight end coach, which you guys got a chance to talk to last week, said, I've been in contact with Zach and I've had phone conversations and I'm keeping him up to speed. Is there any chance that these sides kiss and make up and that Zach Ertz is a Philadelphia Eagle again this year?
I don't think so. I mean, I'm pretty sure he's going somewhere. If it gets to it, he'll be released, but I think they'll be able to work out a deal with somebody like Buffalo where, where you get some loose change. I mean, it's just not fair to him. He doesn't want to be here. So, the signing of Richard Rodgers, I think, even solidifies that even more that he's going to be gone. So, yeah, at some point here between now and start of training camp, I fully expect Zach to be elsewhere.
Yeah, Damo, Jody mentioned Jason Michael. We got to talk to most of the assistants last week. Your first thoughts on that group, because it is an inexperienced group. We were just talking to D. Orlando Ledbetter, another Hall of Fame voter, about the Falcons and a new coach and Arthur Smith, and he's brought in more of a veteran coaching staff. He talked Dean Pease out of retirement. Nick's gone the opposite way. What did first impressions of that staff?
Well, I have mixed feelings about it, John. I'd prefer some experience, a little blend of it. I mean, they did keep Stout, which helps.
Yeah.
But clearly, I mean, there was a conscious effort here. I don't know if it was after they hired Nick or regardless of who was hired, the plan was to, go young, I mean, I like a lot of these coaches, but there is not a lot of experience. I think Brian Johnson's a nice addition, but again, he's never coached a minute in the NFL. Tracy Rocker has, spent 25 years in coaching, 3 in the NFL, which is almost as many as he played. So, that would concern me, except that this clearly is a year of transition, and I think it's going to be a year of transition for the coaching staff as well.
Yes, it's usually a pretty good philosophy when you come to the realization, hey, we need to get younger. Usually that's players, not coaches, but in the Eagles' case this year, it's the coaching staff where they've gotten significantly younger. John and I were just talking about some veteran cornerbacks that the Eagles should at least have interest in, probably not going to work out, cap situation, player not wanting to be here and the like. But that's another position that we've expected something to happen, kind of like Zach Ertz. We're waiting for something to happen on Zach Ertz. We're waiting for something to happen at the CB2 position, the cornerback across from Darius Slay. Anything this week, next week? Are we going to have to wait till week 1 of the upcoming season to determine who's going to be the Eagles' other starting cornerback? What are you hearing the latest about the Eagles and how they believe their cornerback position is right now?
I'm not hearing a whole lot, but I mean, just judging from the way they've operated in the past, I think they're going to wait. I think they're going to see how things develop with other teams once training camp starts. I mean, we could be, you look at when they made the trade for Ronald Darby, they wait until August. They look at teams that maybe have a decent corner that's expendable or that wants to leave or that is not going to play there. I think that's the way it'll eventually shake out here. It's not going to be anybody that's going to knock your socks off. It'll be somebody with experience that they can plug in until they figure out, with some of these younger guys, what they've got. It's that's the way I see it kind of shaking out right now, like August sometime.
Hey, Domo, I want to talk to you about the offseason work in general. Obviously, the Eagles were one of those teams that scaled it back, talked to the players and said, we're not going to have mandatory minicamp. Other teams said, you know what? No, we're going to have it. And some veterans, if you don't want to show up for voluntary work, great, but you got to be here for minicamp. Do you think the Eagles should have held the line with that young coaching staff, with that rookie head coach, with all those young assistants and said, okay, this is about the young players anyway. So if you're a veteran, if you're Brandon Graham, you're Fletcher Cox, you don't want to come in for the voluntary stuff, great. Just come up for minicamp. Do you think the Eagles should have held the line there and moved forward with a minicamp type environment?
Yeah. I only say no because of, they've got a young, inexperienced head coach who I think it was important for him to establish some sort of rapport with a lot of these veterans that they still have. And while a lot of the young players have suffered from the lack of 7-on-7s and 11-on-11s this spring. I think the way they worked it out, where they sat down with the Kelseys and the Coxes and people like that, I think will benefit Nick when he gets everybody together. But I just hate this. I mean, it's very short-sighted of the NFLPA. I understand why and they're run essentially by veteran players, and you can understand why they have no desire to be spending their spring, working out a lot.
Yeah.
But it's for a coach like Nick, for a quarterback like Jalen Hurts, it's really bad. I mean, the snaps he missed are going to set him back. I mean, they got a lot of work, and mentally, I'm sure he's up to speed with the offense, but not being out there, not establishing chemistry with your receivers, there's no good that can come out of that.
Let me ask you to further a comment that you just made, because I think you're dead on right. Short-sighted by the players' union. It seems like every negotiation between the players' union and the owners, which, by the way, they just locked in a 10-year CBA that's going to carry them into the next decade. the union always seems to come back to, well, give us less work. They never win a fight over dollars and cents. The owners draw a real hard line on dollars. Any single dollar they can keep in their pocket, they keep in their pocket. But the union wants to come away with something, and it always seems to be, well, less work, less hitting while we're working, less days working, less hours working. And the NFL says, well, if you really want it, we'll cave on that. We'll give it to you. But to me, then you see a reduction in the quality of football over the course of the long year. Is my description of it accurate? Am I portraying it correctly? Is this actually hurting the game because teams are playing, using less time to prepare to play for the regular season?
Yeah, I mean, this wasn't even an issue when they did the deal last year. COVID after COVID, after they missed last spring, completely virtual. The players said, "Hey, wait a minute. We had a season. We got it in there. It wasn't disgraceful. There were some mistakes that maybe early on that the teams wouldn't have made if they had spring work, but the public probably didn't notice. Why should we have spring camps?" So, I don't think it helps the game. I understand years and years ago, and I was covering the team back then in these years and years ago when they used to have no camps, but they also had six preseason games, and things went on forever. So I mean, players kind of worked their way into shape, worked their way into the system. You don't have that now. I mean, you're down to 3 preseason games. These guys didn't have camp, so they're coming in with basically just mental reps. And they've got 3 games to get ready for the start of the season.
Well, speaking of the union, Domo, they had a conference call last week about the vaccination issue. That's a sticky wicket for both sides. They can't force guys to get vaccinated, but the league is trying to make incentives and incentivize it. And actually, from a team perspective, they seem to be putting it off on the teams and saying, you know what? We're going to play the games. So whether you have a quarterback, and you saw it last year in Denver, I forget the kid's name who was forced to play because the whole quarterback group was quarantined. You have these issues where they're going to play the game. So if you can't get your guys vaccinated and they're quarantined or whatever, you're going to be effective, and they're not going to consider that competitive balance. Do you think that's the right way to go, or do you think there is a better way to go, or is education it? There's not much else they can do?
Yeah, I don't know what it is. I mean, I am just shocked by – I thought football would have a much higher percentage of vaccinated players because I tend to give them a little more credit for being smarter than baseball players. I have no idea what the vaccination rate is in the NBA right now, but I know, baseball's also having trouble. They can't, you're right. They can't make them. They can't do what, I loved it. The federal judge that upheld the Houston Baptist hospital system thing yesterday where, they've made it mandatory. If you want to work in our system, you've got to be vaccinated, and they were sued. And a federal judge basically said the lawsuit has no merit, that a private company can do whatever it wants. And the NFL could do whatever it wants. Unfortunately, it has a union that says, no, you can't. They've educated their players as much as you can. I mean, players that say they need more information are just either complete idiots or looking for an excuse. Since I'm on the total opposite side of this whole thing, and you guys probably are too, I just can't comprehend how somebody could not want to get vaccinated right now. There's been zero evidence of danger. You've got the morons that are out there talking about fork sticking to your head and your chest because you're magnetized. So the only option left to the NFL is to make it as difficult on players that refuse to get vaccinated as possible. Punish them, make them get tested every day, things like that, and then maybe they come around. Because I don't know what else. You can't make them, and that's about your only option right now. You can't find them. You can't cut them. But bottom of the roster guys are going to get cut if they refuse to be vaccinated.
Yeah, but you can cut them. You can't say you're going to cut them.
Right. You got to keep it to yourself.
Yeah.
So
you can't brand it, beat it.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what's going on here. There are going to be some guys you're going to say, that doesn't make sense. Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah. I love Bruce Arians because Bruce said, you want to get back to normal? Get vaccinated. He cuts through all the bullshit at any moment. That's what Bruce Arians is able to do.
And Bruce is one of the few coaches in this league because of who he is and what he just did winning a Super Bowl that can basically tell his players, go get vaccinated or you're not going to play. And there will be nobody saying, wait a minute. Nick Sirianni says that. You're going to have a bunch of guys saying, I don't think so, Nick.
Right. You got here 10 minutes ago and you're going to dictate to me? Yeah, Bruce Arians, a little different stature than Nick Sirianni. I want to get back to the Eagle coaching staff, specific position, and that would be running back. Jamal Singleton not only is trying to replace Deuce Staley, but is also, like Deuce, the assistant head coach. He was one of the guys who impressed me when we got our first chance to listen to him and talk about the upcoming season and how his philosophy meshes with Nick Sirianni, which I all thought was all great. But here's the one thing we don't know. How does Nick Sirianni / Coach Singleton's philosophy mesh with the owner of the Philadelphia Eagles? Because there's been enough reporting this offseason about Jeff Lurie just loves to pass. Eagles win a game, and Jeff Lurie calls Doug Peterson in and reads them the riot act because they didn't pass enough. Even though they went to Green Bay and beat a more talented Packer team, you didn't throw it enough, Doug. How is the Eagle running game going to work this year? Well, they're throwing a lot to the guys out of the backfield, but are you actually going to turn it and hand it off to Miles Sanders at all this upcoming season? How is Coach Singleton going to have to get his foot in the door with the Eagles when this seems to be a pass-happy organization?
Yeah, the only thing we can do, and John can attest to this, is you look at Nick's record with Frank in Indianapolis and what they did the last 3 years, what Shane Steichen did in LA with the Chargers. And, their rushing numbers were respectable. They were, I'm talking carries per game, might have been in the top 10, top 15. But what we're going to see a lot of is throwing to these guys. I'm convinced we're going to see screens out the wazoo this year. They've got, the new guy, Kenny Gainwell, and then you got Miles Sanders, who's better than he showed last year in the passing game, as we saw in year one. I think we're going to see these guys, and we're going to be talking a lot more about what they do catching the ball than running it. But they are going to try. And they've got an offensive line which, if it's healthy, is going to be very, very good, and should be able to protect Jalen. But also mixing in the running game takes pressure off of him as well.
John, it is interesting though, because if you look at this team on paper. And Jalen Hurts' ability to run the ball himself, along with Miles Sanders, who projects to be certainly one of the better offensive players on this team. I don't want to say run the football, but I do think balance is going to be important for this particular team more than most, because you have a young quarterback who isn't the most accurate in the world, or at least that's certainly the perception. It was certainly true in a limited sample size last season. So if you do, and this isn't going to happen, but I'll use this example, Kansas City Chiefs are talking about 20-0, Damo. If they come in here and the Eagles upset them, but they upset them in the wrong way in Jeffrey Lurie's mind, is he actually going to go in that office with Nick Sirianni and say, why are you running the ball with Miles Sanders to beat the Kansas City Chiefs? Could he possibly do that?
Hey, as we've seen the last few years, Jeffrey can do just about anything as far as his conversations with his coach. What's I'm interested in with Jalen, and clearly they've got to take advantage of his running ability, because you don't draft a guy like that unless you're going to, you're going to maximize that part of his game. But they also have to do it while they're teaching him. I mean, I think he's fine accuracy-wise. I mean, we didn't see it last year. But then, you throw in – the one thing he did in those 4 starts was throw a ton of balls away, which plays into his completion percentage. It was the one thing that they couldn't get Carson to do that he was only too willing to do when he had to get rid of the ball. But you come out of an Oklahoma offense, the one thing you have to adjust to is you're no longer making one read and then tucking it under and running. You've got to go through your progressions. Then you can run. Then you can extend the play. So I want to see how he adjusts to that. But, what we're going to see from Jalen, the same thing with Kyler Murray, same thing with Lamar Jackson. You can't play man against these guys. You have your corners and your safeties turn their backs and linebackers turn their backs to cover somebody. They're just gonna run you to death. So, that's certainly going to be helpful to him facing a lot of zones, even with a guy like Greg Ward. I mean, Greg Ward is not a very good man wide receiver, but boy, can he find a hole in his zone. And so I think we're going to see, a lot of people kind of want to put Greg Ward out the pasture, and I think he's going to be a valuable part of this receiving corps. I'm glad to hear that, Jody.
Yeah, Jody loves
I'm the president of the Greg Ward fan club. I can't believe how many people don't give him credit for what he's accomplished since he became a wide receiver for this team.
Well, that's because we know, Damo, they're looking to get better at that position. Doesn't mean they can.
Better.
Doesn't mean they can. But Damo knows they wanted to play more 11 personnel. Doug Peterson did, but the receivers stunk. Can't get them on the field. And Greg keeps out playing the receivers as long as he does that. But they want Travis Fulgham out there. They want Jalen Reagor. JJ Arcega-Whiteside maybe gets one last chance. Quez Watkins, John Hightower. They want more speed on the field. That's not Greg Ward. I'm sorry. That's what the Eagles want. I don't care.
I want production.
I don't care.
There's different ways to skin a cat, and Greg Ward is that for the Philadelphia Eagles in the slot. I rest my case.
I like him too.
Damo, let me get back to the point you were making about the Eagles, and you're going to see guys catch the ball out of the backfield that much more. I'm remembering back off the top of my head, I could look up stats and justify it, but I'm just trying to do it via memory. I don't think the screen game was a big part of Jalen Hurts during the last 4 games of the season. I remember the screen game for Carson Wentz being unsuccessful and him making bad reads and putting the ball where it wasn't supposed to be, and the offensive line not giving him the chance to set it up. The Eagles' screen game was pretty poor under Carson Wentz last year. I'm trying to remember what I felt about the Eagles' screen game under Jalen Hurts. I don't have a grasp right off the top of my head of it being good, bad, or indifferent. It just kind of was, and I don't think it was a big part of it. I think they tried to stay away from it because it can be a difficult play to execute. They were trying to make it easy for Jalen. Why do you think the screen game will work with Jalen Hurts? If you think that's the case, they're going to lean on it this year.
The offensive line. I mean, I just think that's why it didn't work so very well last year. If that offensive line stays healthy, I think it's just expands a lot of the things they're going to be able to do this year. Run the ball, throw the screens, throw a lot of those gadget, quick balls outside where you can, run after the catch. So, but it all depends on what the only question mark in that line right now is left tackle. But Jordan Mailata started 10 games last year. I don't know what Andre Dillard's going to do, but I mean, I have a lot of faith right now in Jordan Mailata's development. So does Stout, apparently. If everybody else stays healthy, if Brooks comes back and can stay in one piece, same thing with Lane Johnson, this is going to be a very good offensive line. I was surprised. I don't know if you guys saw, was it last week, Pro Football Focus, which is usually a big fan of the Eagles' offensive line.
They had them low.
17th in the league. I don't see that. I see a top 10 line here.
Yeah, I think the concern is the injuries. And obviously, Brandon at his age and Lane at his age, it's tough to picture them being out there for 16 games. But if they're out there, they're going to be a top 10 offensive line. I agree with you. You mentioned that left tackle position, Damo. and Stout talked to us last week. Did you glean anything from Stout's words? He spoke well about Jordan and Andre Dillard. Anything behind the surface, reading the tea leaves? You think somebody's ahead? You mentioned Mailata.
Yeah. I just, he likes Mailata better. He's this Pygmalion. I mean, he took this guy from a lump of clay, for God's sakes. He didn't even know how to line up.
Didn't know how to put on a helmet day one. He told us he needed help.
And Stout has turned him into a productive offensive tackle. So, I also was, I was impressed by, we talked to Dillard last week too. He sounds like a guy who gets it now and realizes he needs to come back in it with a different mentality. He's worked hard. He's stronger. But I still, if I'm a betting man right now, and you're asking me who's going to be the season one starting left tackle and who's going to be either the swing tackle or a trade waiting to happen, it's, the second would be Andre Dillard.
All right, Damo, I guess I'm fascinated with the running game, and that's why I'm going back there again and a question about Coach Singleton. This is something that I haven't understood for the last several years. We're going back to the Chip Kelly days, not just Doug Peterson, but Chip Kelly as well, because of Deuce Staley and his position as the running back coach on his team. Chip would say, and then Doug would say basically the same thing. When asked about deployment of running backs, how they chose, what plays they called using the running back, well, that was up to Deuce. The Deuce would roll out what running backs would be on the field on any given play, which I never quite understood. I wasn't suggesting that Deuce wasn't smart enough to pick the right guys, but if you have plays and schemes that specifically fit what a running back does well or doesn't do well, you would think that the coach who's calling the plays would actually make the decision as to who's on the field. But both the last head coach and the previous head coach had complete confidence in Deuce Staley. Deuce is going to pick the right guy. I'm going to call the play, and that guy's going to make it work. Is Singleton going to have that same kind of gravitas here? Does he have a different type relationship with Nick Sirianni, who's going to be calling the plays? It has continued to boggle my mind through the last two coaches, the relationship between the running back coach and the offensive coordinator. How's it going to work with the new two?
Well, I mean, it remains to be seen, Jody, since we're just kind of feeling our way with all of these guys. I mean, we don't know right now whether the assistant head coach title is ceremonial, which it often is, or whether, there's some substance to it. With Deuce, he had some input, or at least was in the room when they would talk about the game plan. So he knew who needed to be out there when they were running something. And my guess is, at least early on, that these will be decisions. Running backs, that'll be the personnel out there will be Steichen and Sirianni as opposed to the running backs coach.
Jamal talked about traits, Damo, and he said you need traits, and you need the runner, the first and second down runner. You need the pass receiver. You need the pass protector, which is 100% right. We all know that. But if you need three guys to do three different things, how much more difficult is it to run your offense? If Kerryon Johnson's in there to pass protect, but he's not good enough as an outlet receiver. If Gainwell's out there to catch the football, and if Miles is obviously first and second down, doesn't that hamstring you by nature?
Yeah, well, I always go back to 2017 when they brought in LeGarrette Blount, and his role was pretty clear. He was going to be the first down guy, and he was very productive at it. And they didn't try to use him in the passing game. They didn't try to use him much on third down. I think when they paired down, in Gainwell and Sanders, you've got two guys they think they can use in tandem because they can move them into the slot. They could do a lot of things with them, more so in the passing game than the running game. Neither one of them are inside runners, though, especially Sanders. He is not the one area he has not impressed me yet in 2 years in this league is his ability to go between the tackles. He doesn't even want to go between the tackles. He bounces everything out. So, I don't know. Is it going to be Jordan Howard? Are they going to have to go get somebody else for that first down role? I think you need somebody in that role. Doesn't mean you need to use them a lot. You can still, line up on first down with Sanders or with Gainwell. But you at least have to have a thumper. And I don't know who it is right now because I'm not a big fan of Howard. I don't think he's got much left. So we'll see.
All right, Damo, my last question, I'm going to give it a little cover here because it's a bit of a tricky question. It doesn't necessarily have to be because someone does something foolhardy. It could be tremendous work ethic. What Eagle player between now and when they report for the first day of camp is going to do something that is going to cause them to miss training camp time, maybe even seasonal games? It can be the fact that they're putting in 10-hour days at the gym, that they're working so hard, that they're so motivated, or they could do something stupid. You don't even have to give us details. Just who is the most likely player to do something? Hey, we're rooting for it for other teams so we can trade Zach Ertz, right? Well, the Eagles could do the same thing. What player is most likely going to do something?
Damo's been around for a long time, but I'm going to be impressed if you can come up with this one.
Come on, Damo. I got faith in you, buddy.
You're asking me who's like the biggest knucklehead on this team, man.
And or the most hardworking, so motivated they're spending their life in the gym, and they actually throw out a bicep because they're working out that much.
Boy. That's a tough one.
I made you uncomfortable with the question.
I think somebody's
the host is an a-hole. All right, I admit to it. I cop to it. My fault. My bad, Damo. I didn't want to put you on the spot like that. I really did. That's why I did. But I will back off and rescind the question.
I gotta go Hall of Fame last for me, Damo, because we had Dion earlier. He talked about Tommy Novus as Mr. Falcon. Should be in the Hall of Fame. What's your take on that? You're in the conversations. You've been in the conversations. When you have a team that hasn't had a ton of success, like the Falcons had over the years, but there are guys, Claude Humphrey finally got in. Dee brought up Aeneas Williams, had a lot of bad years with the Arizona Cardinals. How do you kind of weigh that when you have great players on bad teams?
I've been a selector for 20 years, John, and it's been one of my gripes is that they punish players from bad teams. I mean, you look at the Hall of Fame, it's loaded with Packers from the 60s and Dolphins from the 70s and Steelers from the 70s. And I'm not shortchanging those teams, but my God, there's a point where there are better players on teams that were bad. Like you mentioned, Claude Humphrey. I mean, he was a classic case. I don't know who this year. I just know. I've been trying to get Eric Allen in for several years now. He's finally made the semifinals. He's made it to the final 25. But he played for a great defense when he was here in Philadelphia. But after that, he went to the Raiders and he kind of fell off the radar with a lot of people. And he doesn't really have any coaches. Buddy Ryan's dead. Jeff Fisher doesn't seem inclined to want to talk about him. There's nobody to speak for them. So I don't, but there's a lot of those kind of players. I mean, Harold Carmichael is a classic example. He's finally in. He'll be inducted. He was inducted, he won last year and will be inducted in July, or August. But there are so many of those guys that suffer because of the prejudice towards good teams. So it's hard to pick out one because there are a lot of them.
Damo, keep fighting a good fight for Eric Allen. You have my backing and agreement. The guy was a Hall of Fame level cornerback.
Real quickly, Cody. I mean, this year the big, and I have no say in this because it's going to be picked by a separate committee. But they have a coaches category now, and they've put in three or four over the last 2 years. Well, this year it kind of comes down to Dick Vermeil and Mike Holmgren. Both are going to get in at some point in the next 2-3 years. But Dick's 84, 85 years old now.
That'd be nice.
I don't know if age should be taken into account, but I think it should in this case because Mike's 72. He could drop dead tomorrow, but Dick belongs. Anybody remembers that team? Anybody remembers the Rams? What he did with the Rams. He belongs in the Hall of Fame, and I'm hoping that happens this year.
All right. I feel much better about asking Damo the tough question because he went drop dead tomorrow all on his own. I didn't push him into that one. He went there all by his lonesome. Let that be noted.
We're all old guys. We can talk about people dropping
We
dead.
know. Yeah, we know.
Yeah, you got to work on that gray a little bit. Yours is still black. How the hell you still got black in there? And McMullen and I just have pure white at this time.
I gave up. But we're all day to day, Jody. We all know it, so you can say it.
Damo,
both Dick and Mike belong in either way. So
agreed. Damo, good stuff. Thanks for coming on, buddy. We'll tap into you again as we try and make it through the summer. Thanks for giving us Eagle Thoughts today.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Damo.
Paul Domowitch, Daily News Inquirer, Hall of Fame voter. And he or John or I could all drop dead today. Right. And then it'd be a whole different Birds 365 show tomorrow.
But it'll go on.
Doing it by himself. Good luck with that.
Oh, no.
Me doing it without McMullen. Really good luck with that.
I was assuming I would be the one dropping dead. But you are getting blood work.
I'm getting blood work done today. I could get a bad needle. You never know how this is going to go.
You never know.
And we got almost 22 hours before we got to do it again. We'll take a quickie timeout, come back, put a bow on the show here on Birds 365.
I get scared sometimes.
Of a lot of things.
Joining in.
Decisions.
The dark.
The dark.
But I once heard someone say,
But as I always say,
it's okay to be afraid.
As long as you face the fear.
And keep moving forward.
Wherever you are in life, count on the name trusted in insurance for over 80 years. Independence Blue Cross.
The savoring taste of a good bag of beef jerky is so enjoyable at any time of the day, as long as you can find it. Here's what we suggest. Pure Bull Beef Jerky is our answer, and soon it will be yours. Locally produced in the Philadelphia region, this high-quality, healthy protein snack is easy to secure. Go to steersnacks.com, and you'll see hot garlic, tropical heat, Pure Bull dry rub, and our favorite, Huck and Fod. What's that? Huck and Fod. Go now to steersnacks.com.
Welcome to the Wildwoods, the perfect place where you can safely do everything or nothing at all. Catch a wave, take a nap, go for a drive, grab a bite. It's your vacation, and we're doing everything we can to make it a safe one. The Wildwoods. Your vacation, your way.
The International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Union 98, is a proud sponsor of The Labor Show with J. and Krause every Saturday night from 6 till 8 p.m. IBEW Local 98's highly trained and superbly skilled electricians are the best in the business, setting the highest safety standards in the electrical industry. So when you're planning your next industrial, commercial, or residential project, choose an IBEW Local 98 union contractor. Learn more at ibew98.org.
Field of life, First Trust Bank is there for you.
Champions on 3. 1, 2, 3.
Because Philadelphia dreams deserve a Philadelphia bank.
This is a key. It's a family tree. It's a pair of wings. It's a secret handshake. And a ticket to anywhere in the world. It's more than a uniform. It's the door to a world most people only dream of. There's Strong, and then there's Army Strong. Try it on at GoArmy.com.
All right, coming down the home stretch of a Monday edition of Birds 365 here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel, Mac and Mac guys. We only got a couple minutes left here, JM. And here's the last thing I want to add to today's show. I want to thank our stream team, the guys who watch us every single day, hop on the stream, put their comments in our stream, and try and keep us on the straight and narrow. Thank you very much for doing it, guys. I do keep an eye on the stream every single time I do the show. We don't answer direct questions from it, but we do appreciate your contribution to the show. Off today's stream, I can tell you, John, they don't like us talking about vaccinations. That a bunch of the guys are saying, "Hey, don't bring it up. It's just not. I don't want to hear you
it's
guys."
Important when you're an Eagles fan and half the team can't play because they're in quarantine, and oh, by the way, they're completely healthy. It's a tricky subject. So unfortunately, I agree. I don't like talking about political stuff because you have these two bickering sides who have no concept of middle ground or anything of that nature. It just drives me insane. My point is competitive advantage. This league, Jody, has proven they don't give a you-know-what. If you don't have a player, people talk about competitive advantage. Roger Goodell made it very clear last year. Look, you don't have fans because of local government? Tough. Somebody else has fans? You got to go play there? Tough. If you don't have a quarterback, as I brought up with the Denver Broncos, because everybody's healthy but in quarantine? Tough. You got to play the game. That's my point. That is relevant to the NFL.
And when they have put rules in place where if you get 85% vaccinated, then you get to relax protocols and you get to go around without masks and you can prepare more easily for an upcoming game or a season or whatever. We didn't put these in place. The NFL put these in place. Roger Goodell decided to put these in place. And if you think we just should ignore them because it's uncomfortable to talk about, well, sorry.
Jody, I gotta break in because we gotta, usually this happens 5 minutes after the show is over. Eagles have their third quarterback, Nick Mullins.
Oh, they did sign Nick Mullins. You were on the Nick Mullins bandwagon last week. I'm not nearly as big a fan. I saw Nick Mullins play last year. At times, surprisingly good. At times, not surprisingly awful. Yeah, I'm not a big fan. All right. Well, we know what we'll be talking about tomorrow. That's for damn sure. A little bit more of the QB3. But before we do go away, I got to just run this one by you as well. I didn't know it was this easy. From Preston Horns, who hopped on our stream today. He suggested for the Eagles, trade Zach Ertz to the New England Patriots for Stephon Gilmore and a third-round draft pick and be done with it.
Yeah, well, the Patriots just spent monster money on two tight ends. So they're not adding another tight end. So I'm going to scratch that one off right away.
And the bigger reason to scratch it off is not even the fact that they just went free agent and signed two tight ends. You're getting Gilmore and a third-round pick?
Yeah, well,
for Zach Ertz? Are you kidding me?
By the way, Jody, my mind shut off as soon as I heard trade Zach Ertz to the Patriots. Because of that reason. But you're right, 100%.
You know what?
Spent an enormous amount of money on two tight ends.
Precedent. If I were you, I'd hold out. I'd want the third plus Gilmore.
Yeah, why not? Yeah.
I want another fifth on top of that. Get that second pick included. Be a hardline negotiator, Howie Roseman. You can do Bill Belichick. It's doable, my friend.
You might as well force the Patriots to get Tom Brady back and put him in the deal to be the third string quarterback instead of Nick Mullins.
We don't need Brady now. Now that we got Nick Mullins, we don't need that Brady character. Again, thanks to the stream team. And guys, sorry if we from time to time have to talk about stuff that you don't feel comfortable about us talking about. Good, bad, or indifferent. We're going to be here every day talking about the Philadelphia Eagles. Johnny Mac, I will see you again in 22 hours. Get all your Nick Mullins info in line and ready because
got to get on it.
I'm not a fan. I don't need to look him up. I know what I saw. My own two eyes.
I'm a big fan as a third string quarterback. You ain't doing better than Nick Mullins as a third string quarterback.
Well, what is it we've been talking about the last couple of weeks? That they need to get younger. They got younger on the coaching staff. It's nice to get younger players. The third string quarterback should be a guy who's played this many plays in the National Football League. 0, zippity doo-dah. Should be a development guy, not Nick. Yeah, he helped the 49ers lose games last year, Mullins. But that's
he's only 26.
He can't play. But that's, again, my opinion. And you'll be back here for our opinion tomorrow, 22 hours from now. Until then, have a good Monday, everybody. Be back here for Birds 365 Mañana.
If you missed any of today's show on the JAKIB Media channel, listen to the podcast on your way home. Available on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.